Alright guys, today we're going to be making apple samosas. And so the first thing you're going to do is you take your apple, and I just want you to go ahead and I want you to peel the apple. Then you're going to go ahead, you're going to cut it in half, quarter it, and you're going to remove the center core part. Then what you want to do is you're going to cut up the apple into really thin slices. So once you've got it cut up, you're going to turn it and cut it the same in this direction, so about really thin cuts. Take that and I'm going to place that all inside of our pot. And continue cutting the apple. Again, turning it and cutting it. It's easiest if you use the bridge hold here. Get everything chopped up. Chopped up, just placing it inside of my pot. Once that's done, you're going to go ahead and you're going to add in your butter as well. So we're going to cut up our butter. You want 25 grams of butter. then you're gonna put your sugar in as well. So for sugar, we want a total of 55 grams of sugar. So you can use 100% just caster sugar, or you could also add in some brown sugar. I'm gonna add in a little bit of brown sugar. About 25 grams of that, and I'm gonna put the remaining caster sugar. So it's a total of 55 grams. Now you could use all brown, you could use all white, it doesn't matter. Okay. Put on the lids immediately, so when you're done with it, you clean it up. And then you're gonna also put in here a half teaspoon of cinnamon. And then you're gonna place that on the stove. From the stove, we're gonna just turn that on and start heating it up. You're gonna grab a heat-proof spatula to start stirring it around. So we just wanna cook up the apples. So get the butter at the bottom, make sure it's melting. The apples will release lots of moisture as well. So this is our filling for our apple cinnamon samosas. Now you could use any type of filling, like samosas are filled with savory or sweet fillings. Today I'm choosing to do a sweet one in the season of fall. You want to really bring it so that all the sugar and everything is melted. Cook it up for a couple minutes to soften those apples. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set it aside to cool down for a minute. Meanwhile, I'm going to prepare my oil. So we're going to get a wok of oil, and we're going to just turn that on to heat, start cooking up. You can see inside here, the apple's cooking up really nicely. You want to cook off a lot of the extra moisture. So right inside of here is very wet right now. We don't want it to be that wet. So we're just going to cook it off and help to evaporate the extra liquid off of the apples. So for phyllo pastry, phyllo pastry can be bought in these packages that look like this. Okay, it's a super thin pastry. Phyllo is something. It refers to the word leaf. It translates to leaf in Greek. It says it's paper thin. Okay, and so what you want to be aware of is there's some problems you can have with this pastry if you're not careful. So when you're defrosting it or you're going to use it, you want to make sure you defrosted it properly, because if you haven't, what can happen is the moisture can be caught between the layers, and then it will just tear all the sheets when you try to remove them and use them. Secondly, the pastry dries out super thin, so you want to make sure you keep it wrapped up or not exposed to a lot of air until you're ready to use it. And then finally, it's so paper thin that you can actually read through the pastry. So you want to make sure you're handling it with care and practice, making sure that there's no problems so that you don't tear it up so badly. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using next. I'm just trying to cook down this. You can see how much liquid's inside of here. Just trying to cook that down a bit. So just keep it on power 3. And let that cook. So next I'm gonna get my area ready here for my pastry. So the pastry comes like this. I'm gonna take it out, carefully unfolding it. I'm gonna take off one of these sheets to use right now. You can see it's super thin. Immediately I'm gonna wrap this other ones that I'm not using back up. Put it back inside so that I don't have any issues with this pastry. And that's gonna go back in the fridge. My apple has definitely got less wet. I think it's good, so it's ready to stop cooking, and I can really cool it down. So to cool it down, you can do a few things. You can take some water. You can take some water like this, shut off the heat, and you can cool down the pan. Okay, so that will help to cool down the apples. Meanwhile, I'm going to prepare my cookie sheet. So you can do one of two things. You can take a knife and you're going to cut it into thirds. So you have 3 equal pieces. Just pushing lightly with the tip of your knife, it will just come apart. Okay. So here we have our pastry. So if we don't want it to dry out, what you can do is you can take a towel, okay? You want a damp towel, not a wet towel. You can just lay this very carefully over top. Okay. If I'm going to fill this up now, there's one of 2 ways we can do this. So I'm going to take a spoon. I'm going to spoon out some of the apple. I'm going to place it in the bottom corner, bottom edge. Something like so. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold from my bottom corner over to the far side. So it's going to make a triangle that you can see here. Once you've got your triangle, you're going to keep folding on whatever side is facing the pastry. So I see a straight edge here. So this whole thing is going to lift up carefully and it's going to fold right over and forward, trying to keep your pastry from tearing as best as you can. Okay, if little bits of apple thaw, just clean it up. Or you can try to attempt to tuck it back in, but I'm just going to wipe it up here. So now my fold is here. I'm going to continue on the same thing where I'm going to just fold it over to the side, always making sure that the edges of the pastry line up. So now it's straight again, so I'm going to go forward on an angle, going on an angle, and then forward, and an angle, and then forward. Now at the end, what you can do is see this extra piece. If you want it to stick, what you do is take a little bit of water, dampen your finger, get it a little bit wet, and then when it's wet, it's going to stick to the other pastry much easier. So then you can lock it into place. And there we go, we have our first one done. All right, now I'm going to show you how we can do this again, but slightly different, in a different method. I'm going to show this method twice because it's a little bit trickier. So with this method, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pastry and I'm going to fold it already up to the corner. Okay, so I'm trying to make an equilateral triangle, so all sides of the triangle are the same. So if I go back here, it's not the same, but if I push the outside triangle past the edge of the paper, I can get it to where I see an equilateral triangle. When I'm kind of happy there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this bottom corner up and I'm going to fold it back over top like so. And then you can see on top here again, my equilateral triangle is nicely lined up. Now this one creates a pocket. Okay, so you can see here we have a pocket, and this is where we're going to then place all of the filling. Okay, so same thing happens. You're going to take your spoon, you're going to take your filling, you're going to carefully place it inside. Now this one's going to have a tendency of wanting to be a little bit trickier because it wants to stick to the spoon when you pull it out. Just do your best to fill up triangle. Right. There we have it. We have our triangle. This is the same. Okay. Trying to make sure that it's all lined up nicely. And then it's going to be the same process as we did just before, where we fold it back and forth. So this corner is going to lift up and go to this corner. Now this time it will always be on an angle. Okay. Like so. Angle. Lift it again to this angle. And again. Okay, last thing you're going to do again, take a little bit of water, place it onto the pastry. Okay, you have to be careful when you handle it after the water's on it because it wants to break quite easily. But it's what helps you to glue it onto the pastry. There we go. And there we have it. So once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to place it we're going to fry them. So we've got our wok here. We got the oil that's really hot. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to carefully place it on the side and then let it drop down inside, and you'll see it to bubble right away. Okay. So there we have our samosas cooking up. Get a bowl out. I like to put in a napkin or two. Make sure that they're all the way under the oil or cooking. You can flip them up once. Okay. While we wait for those to cook, it won't take too long. I'll demonstrate one more time how to do the one I just did. So again, be careful the table's not really that wet, okay, if you were wetting the edge there before, because it may become problematic for you. So again, I'm going to take this corner. Before, it's not like this, it's not like a triangle like that. You want to have equilateral, so you need to have the bottom side kind of stick out, and you'll see 4 or 3 equal sides. Once you got your 3 equal sides, you're going to fold it back over top, like so. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the remaining of our apple, open it up just as careful as you can. Place it in, and what you have to do is you have to use your finger to really push the apple inside of the triangle, okay? Now this is where it can get really messy and people can really mess it up. You can see there, when I pulled my finger out, it's kind of messed up the shape. So at this point, I need to just kind of try to do my best to adjust it back and get it right into this spot, okay? These ones that are equilateral, they actually can put a lot more filling in, I find, as well. So usually I'll do 2 scoops. This one's getting 3. And there we have it. It's a little bit messy, that's okay. I'm just gonna pull this up over top, back and forth. Lining up those edges like so. Lifting it up, carefully putting a little bit of water on there, and then letting it to stick to the other face. Again, you're gonna take that and just let it fall down into the oil. Now these ones looks like they're just about done. They don't need to be super brown, but they should have a light brown color to them. So let them cook for a slight bit longer. Now I put about 6 in here at a time. If you notice it's not bubbling, it's not hot enough, then you need to stop and wait for the oil to get a little bit hotter. Okay. Well, these look good now. I take these out. Can let any excess oil come off. Okay, and then you're gonna place them into the bowl with the paper towel. That's just gonna absorb any excess oil on the outside. Okay, and there you have it, your apple cinnamon samosas.